Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to make our first vodcast, video on demand casting. You may have seen some of your other instructors use pen casting or screen casting. I like the vodcast term, but really it's about the same thing. I think it's applicable for these online classes, but also for in-person classes. I want to talk about ways that you can use it in your classroom. So not only am I giving instructions to clarify this assignment, but I'm also modeling what you can do in your classroom for your kids. So hopefully we get double duty out of this. So today I want to introduce a mini research activity, and I do mean mini, so don't get heart palpitations just yet. And our topic is why students struggle to understand fractions. When I assigned the reading out of our textbook, Teaching Student-Centered Mathematics, in Chapter 1, I thought their coverage was really good in terms of a topic, but I did not think it was extensive enough. And the topic is fractions. Students have so much trouble understanding fractions, and I'm not sure why that is, and I want you to take a little time today, this week, to reflect on that, research a little bit on one aspect of it, and report back to me. Because it is an important topic all the way up. My high school kids at all levels still make mistakes with fractions. And it might be that you want to focus on the fraction problems from a student perspective and talk about what a student is doing when they do a common mistake, such as not having a common denominator. Oftentimes you'll see them go 3/5 times 2/3, and they'll or I'm sorry, well, they do those wrong too. Then they'll go I see them sometimes go 5/3 and multiplying and just keep one of these. In addition, when they're adding fractions, oftentimes they'll forget to do a common denominator, and they'll say this equals 5/8, and that one's very, very common. You may want to focus your research on the teacher, because there is a lot of research out there about how teachers do not feel comfortable with fractions. And so they tend to either skip introduction with fractions, or they tend to do kind of a superficial coverage of fraction and use a lot of tricks, so to speak. And I'll give you an example. I was in a classroom one time observing a teacher, and this gentleman was teaching proportions. Let's say you have 3/7 equals n over 9, or something like that. And this teacher was telling his students and he had a little graphic, he said, cross multiply and divide. Kind of went like that. So then he said, n equals 3 times 9 divided by 7, which is true, but doesn't really use math operators to solve this problem. What should he have done? 3/7 equals n over 9. Well, you could use the multiplication property of equality and multiply both sides of the equation by 9. And now we have the same thing. 3 times 9 divided by 7, 3 times 9 divided by 7. But instead of saying cross multiply and divide as an algorithm, we can use our properties of equality and maybe give the kids a little better foundation on which to work. So something to think about. So when you do your mini research activity, you can focus on problems that students have, or you can focus on problems that math teachers may have. And either one can be instructive. So let's get down to some of the basics. Your page needs to be a minimum of 2 pages in length, double spaced, and if you're single spacing, you can account for that accordingly. I want you to cite at least 3 sources, and I didn't write this down, but I want at least one source, one or more sources from Google Scholar. And I'll show you that in a minute if you're not familiar with it. And I also want you to use APA format, and we'll go to the Purdue OWL for the guide to that, for your references and for your in-text citations. So let's take a peek at what maybe some of our research would look like. You might just use regular Google and type in common mistakes with fractions. And as you can see, they come up with all kinds of things. You might type in, you might want to go to Google Scholar. And if you're not familiar with Google Scholar, it is just a search engine for scholarly pursuits, scholarly research. You can just type in Google Scholar and it comes up, Google Scholar. And notice it looks like regular Google, but it has this Scholar underneath. And in Google Scholar, your searches may need to be a bit more academic in the language. We might do something like pedagogical content knowledge of mathematics teachers. So one of your sources, at least, needs to be from Google Scholar. Now, one advantage that Google Scholar has, in addition to having peer-reviewed articles, number 2, it has cited by, right down here, cited by 650, so that's not a huge amount, so maybe that's not a great one to choose, or it might be brand new. Look at this one down here, cited by 3305. That means that over 3,000 scholars, when they were writing academic papers, cited this article as one that was important to them, or that they found to be helpful, or that supported a point that they were trying to make. So you can always look at that. How many were they cited by? Cited by 888. Pedagogical content knowledge, a tentative model for teacher preparation, and that's in the ERIC database. Some of these are hard to find. Some of them you can click on them in the PDF and its full amount is right there. But that's part of the fun that you can have in getting used to Google Scholar. So, on to the Purdue OWL. Purdue OWL is a wonderful APA formatting and style guide. Now, in some of your other classes, you might have used MLA, and that is a great style guide as well. And Purdue OWL has MLA style guide. But if you're doing any kind of scholarly academic research, it will be, at least the standard right now is to use APA style for any kind of academic research. So I want you to at least get yourself familiar with APA style if you're not already. Perhaps you encountered that in your undergrad programs and are very good at it. In that case, this will be easy for you. The Purdue OWL breaks it down into in-text citation, basics, reference list, and you can look at all those. I want to look at their sample paper. I think I have that up right here. And we're going to modify it a little bit because obviously this is not a full-on paper. You do not need to do a whole page as a cover page, but be aware of of the style that it's in. You do not need an abstract because some of the abstracts would be as long as your paper, but be aware that on a long paper you do use an abstract, a summary of your findings. So you can just jump right into it. The one thing I would like, however, um, is to use in-text citations in Cummings et al.'s 2002. That's an in-text citation. And start to get used to those. And again, you don't need a lot. You're only going to have 3 resources here. And so you may only have 3 in-text citations. And that's fine. I just want you to get used to the process. At the end, you will have, and you don't need a separate sheet for it if you don't want to, but you can. You will have a reference sheet. Notice the format that these are in. It's very specific. And again, on the Purdue OWL, they give you instructions. Notice this hanging indent. When I did this, it took me forever just to figure out how to format a hanging indent, but I eventually did. And again, the Purdue OWL has everything you'd ever need. APA Formatting and Style Guide, APA Style Overview and Workshop, in-text citations, everything you'd ever want. This is really, really, really an authoritative source for information on writing research papers. So that's about all for now. Let's see how much we've done. This wound up being 11 minutes, so we'll keep it under 12. Please email me with your questions. I will have the instructions for this also written on the Moodle site. So thank you for listening, and I hope you find this event, this activity enjoyable. Bye now.